Abortion is justified in cases of rape, incest, or risk to the mother's life. Now, this is an extremely important argument because this is the argument that takes otherwise pro-life people and turns them into pro-choice people. The first George Bush was an example of this many years ago when he was president. His position was that he was against all abortions except in the cases of rape, incest, or risk to the mother's life. So it sounds like, well, I'm pro-life, and I'm really as pro-life as I could be, except there's just a few little exceptions here. But what's interesting is the exceptions become very telling, because if we take it to its logical conclusion, then if those are legitimate exceptions, we can work backwards and make exceptions of all other kinds of things. Okay, a couple of points that need to be made. Pregnancy due to rape is very rare. Now, there's a wide discrepancy in a belief in terms of how rare it is. And the reason that this is difficult is that in most cases, it's impossible to prove whether a person has been raped or not. Norma McCorvey, that was Roe v. Wade. Jane Roe was really Norma McCorvey. And so the whole argument, was she was raped, and her, that's why she was pregnant, and so they're arguing for the right to abortion for this girl who was pregnant as a result of rape. Well, Norma McCorvey later came to faith in Christ, was led to Christ by a guy in Texas and baptized her in the swimming pool, and she grew in the faith, and later made some different choices along the way, but I met her, talked with her, nice lady, and she acknowledges that she just made that up. The lawyers knew that she hadn't been raped, and she admitted to them, but it makes a much better case if you say that you've been raped. And unfortunately, the reporting, what girl wants to admit that she consensually did this? So there's many reports of rape that aren't actually rape. Now, of course, there are many real rapes. I'm not suggesting that women are making up that they're being raped. I'm talking about the unique situations that are involved in with this. So some say, so this is the Guttmacher Institute is actually owned by Planned Parenthood. And 1.5% of abortions were reported as due to rape or incest. But most people agree that's an extremely high figure, and it accounts for all the Norma McCorveys and every girl that wants to say to her sometimes Christian parents, this wasn't my choice. And that's understandable. I'm sympathetic with the girl. I'm not saying it's right to lie, and I'm certainly not saying it's right to have an abortion. But we should all sympathize with this. Other studies have shown that pregnancies due to rape may be as few as 1 in 1,000 cases where there is a rape. There's a number of reasons for that, sometimes due to the trauma involved and some other factors. But in any case, even when a rape, and let me interject this. I have a good friend who was raped and did conceive. As a result of that rape, made the difficult decision to place the child for adoption because the race of the child would make it clear that her husband was not the father of the child. Okay. And it was just something that they worked it out, and this is, the decision they came to. They placed their child for adoption. Of course, it does happen sometimes, even if it's rare. But when it happens, rape is never the fault of the child. So this is one of these things we've just got to make clear. So who are we going to punish? If you found out your biological father had raped your mother and that's how you were conceived, would you believe that you no longer had a right to live? Would you say, I don't deserve to live, I guess I should kill myself? I mean, who would conclude that? It would be very traumatic if you found this out. But would you actually think that your life was of no value? So at this time, years ago, actually, I was preaching on my church on this. It was actually a Sunday evening, kind of a seminar type thing, did on abortion. And I defended the right to live of every child, including those who had been conceived by rape or incest. This woman in our church, wonderful woman, mother of several great kids, and delightful person, came up to me, and she was weeping uncontrollably. She was weeping, and I just said, "Well, you know, what can I do for you? How can I help you? How can I pray for you?" And she said, "Thank you for saying that people like me have a right to live." She said, "All these years I have heard people in politics and even conservative politicians and sometimes even pastors and people in churches say, I believe in the right to life except in the case of rape and incest." And she said, "My mother was raped as a 13-year-old and placed me for adoption. I've never met her. I don't know her name. But every time I hear people say, except in the case of," what they're saying is, "You don't deserve to live, you filthy piece of pseudo-humanity." That's the message she had gotten. You understand why she got that message? I mean, it would have been perfectly fine to kill her by abortion. Obviously. And you know, I don't think I had, till that moment, given much thought, maybe any thought at all, to how a person hearing that would feel if it were them. I'd given thought to how a handicapped person would feel. How do those poor handicapped people feel when people are saying it would be over? How does a Down syndrome child feel when a Down syndrome child hears that it would have been perfectly fine to abort them because of their deformity? But I had never thought about the person who knows they're the product of rape or incest. But it's so interesting how we fail to grasp sometimes the very human aspects of this. The point that I make in my book, ProLife Answers to Pro-Choice Arguments, is that creating a second victim doesn't undo the damage to the first. I have some of these arguments in my smaller book that Jason, I think, held up earlier, Why Pro-Life, as well. Creating a second victim doesn't undo the damage to the first. So the solution to the one atrocity is not another atrocity. It doesn't work. Whoops. The rapist should be punished, not the child. I've had some interesting discussion with people who actually believe that they would do less to they would have less of a severe sentence upon the rapist than I would favor. And they say, so you actually are in favor of killing the innocent child who had nothing to do with the rape, and you oppose me having strong standards of punishment for the person who was guilty of the crime. How does that work? So 2 violent attacks happen, to an innocent woman when raped and to an innocent child when aborted. A child conceived by rape is as precious as a child conceived by love, because a child is a child. It doesn't matter how you were conceived, it matters that you were conceived. That's what makes you a human being. So, children conceived in incest. Incest is a horrible crime. Offenders should be punished. Victims should be protected from further abuse. See, this is the crazy thing. Because people will hear you talking about how it wasn't the child's fault, and they're going, oh, you're defending rape and incest. No, not even slightly. I'm defending a child's life right to live. That's what I'm defending. The abuser is the problem. Intervention, protection, ongoing personal help for the girl, not the death of an innocent child, is the solution. Will the child conceived by such a vile act as rape or incest be a constant reminder of the woman's pain? This is what people are saying. Well, if you let the child live, then there's going to be that reminder. On the contrary, the innocence of the child often has a healing effect. I know women who have given birth to the child, even through these difficult circumstances, and there's something about the decision they have made to protect the life of this child that gives them a dignity that the rape took from them. The woman can also give another family an incredible gift by allowing them to adopt her child. Any comments? Because that's, I mean, rape and incest is like, this is, the flags are really flying, the emotions really get, I mean, I've never spoken on this subject without being aware that a lot of people are extremely uncomfortable with what I'm saying, even people sometimes who are otherwise pro-life.